Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Bedtime with Tomi. This evening we will be reading chapter 19, Clara's point of view, from Dancing with the Royal. A week passed. David continued to serve as Clara's official London tour guide. Together they explored Greenwich, the Tower of London, and the Victoria and Albert Museum, and sailed on a Thames River cruise. Clara couldn't believe just how much ground she had covered. She was also becoming more and more proficient at using her crutches. Now she was on her way to her next item on her list. Michael twisted and checked on his charge in the back seat as they waited to pass their security. "Are you feeling all right, Miss Little? It's not like you to be so quiet." Smoothing down the fabric of her skirt, she replied dryly, "When David spoke to me about having a VIP viewing of the changing of the guard ceremony, I thought I might have a spot near the front gate where I could watch it. I never imagined he'd arrange for me to be a guest at Buckingham Palace. Do you realize who lives here?" A policeman finished checking the underside of the car. "You're all clear." "Thanks, Joe," Michael said. The car advanced on the long drive shaded by trees. "Yes, miss," the driver replied calmly. "Leeds' maternal family resides here. But you shouldn't worry. I doubt you'll cross paths with the king or queen today." Her hand shook. The imposing building she'd driven past on her first day in London grew larger. "Do you think I dressed appropriately?" She pulled the fabric over her knees. "This is the only dress I had. Thank goodness my luggage actually turned up, or else I might not even have a dress. Did I ever tell David thank you for his help in tracking it down?" "Miss Little, breathe. Your attire is just right." The car came to a stop. Michael assisted Clara out of the car and waited patiently until she steadied herself on her crutches. Leeds sent a message along a little earlier that he was running a tad behind schedule. He'll have a backup guide today until he can join you. Clara's stomach performed somersaults. Who would that be? Me. Eddie leaned casually against the pillar by the door, waiting for her with his hands in his pockets, appearing much more relaxed and in his element. He was dressed in a pair of gray slacks and a crisp white dress shirt. His eyes were clear and brightened in excitement at seeing Clara. "I know I'm not your favorite person, but I hope to have a couple of minutes to chat with you." Still in shock, she bobbed her head up and down. "Your Royal Highness, I leave Miss Little in your hands." "Thanks, Michael." Should she curtsy or bow? Could she even speak to him? Or should she let him initiate the conversation? Technically, she'd met him at David's flat, but this was different. They were at Buckingham Palace, and Eddie was the heir to the throne. "I don't bite, you know." Finding her voice, she managed, "It's nice to see you again, Edmund." "Please," he waved her off. "You've seen me at my worst. It's Eddie." He cleared his throat. "I hope you're doing well. I'm sorry once again for," he gestured to her cast. "That." "Eddie, I already accepted your apologies. Don't look so stressed. Please, it almost hurts to see you so down." "Thank you," he said, looking up. "David mentioned that you're fitting quite a few engagements in your schedule," she said. "He was concerned you might be pushing yourself too hard. He also mentioned you've been avoiding him." "David's too good to me." Eddie rubbed the back of his neck. "Let him know that I promised to handle it. I could handle it. From now until I join the army, I'm fully committed to showing my father and the family I can carry my own weight as a working royal." Eddie led her down the hall to a service elevator. He let out a deep sigh and didn't speak until the doors opened. A wheelchair sat inside of it. "It's a bit of a walk. David thought you might be more comfortable with the wheelchair." She took a seat and handed her crutches to Eddie, who placed them on the back of the chair. Silence passed between them for another minute as Clara took in her surroundings. She had seen photos of the palace rooms in her guidebook. It was surreal to be inside, walking past them. Clara stared at everything, from the red and gold carpets to the elaborate glass chandeliers. The room closest to the elevator contained a large portrait of the late queen. Clara studied her face, looking for any resemblance to David. Eddie remained silent. She needed to lighten the mood. "David's staff has been trying hard to sell me, but he's an amazing boss. I've heard more times than I can count that he's a good bloke." "That's all well and good, but I want to know that he has flaws just like the rest of us. Do you have any embarrassing stories you'd be willing to share with me about your cousin?" Eddie stopped pushing their chair and looked down at Clara. She turned to find him staring at her with an eyebrow raised. "Only if you promise never to tell him who your source was." She made the gesture of zipping her lips closed. Scouts on her. Off the top of my head, I have 2 memories, Eddie said with a mischievous glint in his eyes. The first one was on the night my sister Alice turned 10 and was invited to attend her first state ball. David was with her in the middle of the dance floor when the seam of his trousers split on his bum, revealing a pair of bright red boxer briefs. Eddie started laughing. David tried to use Alice's skirt to hide behind, but my sister was oblivious. She kept shouting for him to let go of her skirt. It ended up only bringing more attention to him. Father only took note what was going on and took pity on him by cutting in to finish the dance with Alice. Only then was he able to slip away. Oh no, Clara's body shook with laughter. A state dinner too? Ouch, poor David. She wiped a small tear from the corner of her eye. I'm almost afraid to ask what your other memory is. When I was 13, David invited me over for a lad night in his flat. We watched films, played video games, and sang some awful karaoke. When it was time for dinner, I was extra excited. It was the first time I've ever been allowed to order takeaway food. I'd heard my protection officers talking up Indian food, so that's what I decided to order. I think I ended up ordering one of everything on the menu, but David being David was a good sport about it. When the food arrived, we each picked a container at random to try. I ended up with naan and David a curry. After he took about 2 bites of food, his face turned a fiery red. He shot up from the table and darted to the guest bedroom, shouting, "Hot!" In a moment of panic, I handed him the closest thing to me with water. He drank about half of it before he realized it was water from his fishbowl. The look on his face was priceless. Both of them chuckled. Eddie sighed. With David, what you see is what you get. He rarely loses his temper and is one of the most easygoing gents out there. He's my best mate and the brother I always wanted but never had. Thanks for sharing those stories with me. A cool breeze hit Clara's face. The sound of boots hitting the ground in unison and music filled the air. Eddie wheeled her out to the side door onto the terrace under a covered arch. One company of soldiers in the famed scarlet tunics was lined up in 2 neat rows, while another company was in the process of marching through the palace's black and gold front gates. We'll watch the ceremony from here. I discovered this spot by accident as a child. Looking out, it was a sea of people pressed shoulder to shoulder, watching the guards' every movement. Eddie, what if they see you? He puffed out his chest. They won't, trust me. At 11, after the household cover soldiers had ridden past, Eddie and Clara were headed inside when they encountered an elegantly dressed woman in a green blazer, her reddish hair secured in a low chignon. Despite the clash in colors, the woman pulled off the outfit flawlessly. Edmund, well, isn't this a fun surprise? Aunt Charlotte, Eddie sputtered. Clara inclined her head. Your Royal Highness? She'd remembered being presented to the Princess Royal shortly before the gala began. Princess Charlotte's brown eyes appraised Clara with a knowing smile. Edmund, be a dear and bring Miss Little up to my sitting room. As it so happens, I've just asked my secretary Abigail to have a spot of tea brought up from the kitchens. Clara could sense waves of anxiety rolling off Eddie as he gripped the handles of her wheelchair tightly. Yes, ma'am. Good lad. Why was he so nervous around his aunt? Turning, Princess Charlotte walked with an air of importance, almost like a dancer. Clarice wondered if she were a ballerina at one point in her life. Then she noticed the princess walked with her feet turned out. I guess that answers my question. Old habits die hard. Eddie, you aren't going to leave me alone with your aunt, are you? Clara whispered. If I stay, who's going to go get your backup? Clara, puzzled by his remark, watched Eddie make a hasty exit, leaving her to wonder just what he meant. With the aid of her crutches, she moved to a wooden chair positioned opposite an antique oak desk. The room was bathed in natural light, offering a beautiful view of the palace gardens. The walls were pale yellow. 2 Degas portraits adorned the walls, immediately catching Clara's eye. Well, Miss Little, I must say, I hope you heal quickly. I thoroughly enjoyed your pas de deux last week. You left quite an impression with the dance community. Clara turned her attention to Princess Charlotte, who was seated behind her desk. Thank you so much, Your Highness. You may call me Princess Charlotte. The princess poured 2 cups of tea and offered a cup and saucer to her. Thank you, ma'am. She nodded. And how are you enjoying London so far? Is it to your liking? It's been a dream come true. I love the city and the people very much. Excellent. A coy smile appeared on Princess Charlotte's lips as she settled in her seat, crossing her legs at the ankle. Can you envision yourself falling in love with London long enough to contemplate a future here? Clara's hands trembled. causing hot amber liquid to spill from the cup's rim and onto the saucer. "Oh my," she said. Unfazed, the princess set her cup down and passed the napkin. I don't know if I had the right reason." The princess picked up the saucer once more. "It's not public knowledge yet, but Evelyn Murdoch, one of the Westminster Ballet's principal dancers, will be retiring at the end of the season," she revealed, taking a sip. "I'm aware that Mr. Williamson has been keeping his eyes open for just the right dancer to fill the spot. She's one of Anton's most frequent partners. Judging from how well the pair of you work together, I'm confident in saying that Mr. Williamson has added you to his short list of candidates." Clara's pulse quickened as she hung on to the princess's every word. "Me? Shortlist?" "Yes, dear," the princess said, her eyes narrowing. "Of course. Mr. Williamson is not in the habit of approaching dancers who are already under contract with other companies. Hypothetically speaking, however, if a dancer were to express an interest in auditioning for the company in the future, Mr. Williamson would be pleased to reach out to you when the timing was appropriate. Do you understand what I'm saying to you?" I don't think she could be any more blunt. "If I want to be considered for this spot, it'll be up to me to reach out to Mr. Williamson." Clara considered how she could be diplomatic as possible. The Westminster Ballet was her dream company, but her loyalty was to Artem and LABT for taking a chance on her all those years ago. "Ma'am, I understand perfectly well. I'm happy to keep my options open. However, at the moment, my loyalty lies to LABT. I respect that." As she reached over for her tea, the door to the princess's study abruptly banged open. David burst into the room, panting and disheveled. His hair was damp, his shirt was buttoned unevenly and wrinkled. "David," both women demolished. "Mum, Clara." An alarm bell sounded in her head. Princess Charlotte was David's mother. Why hadn't she made the connection before? So that was the end of chapter 19 from Dancing with the Royal. We will have to find out what happens next with David. As you have gathered from some of the other videos, she's pretty eccentric and meddling. She wants a grown child desperately and to see her only child happy and settled. I decided to base the ballet that's in the book and the newer editions on the Royal Ballet, and you'll notice that some of the names have changed as opposed to the original editions. So the Westminster Ballet is the fictional version of the Royal Ballet. They both perform at the Royal Opera House in Covent Garden. Something else I really enjoyed was making the Princess Royal a dancer. In some of the earlier versions, she was just David's mom, but I thought it'd be fun to give her a little bit more backstory. And someday, who knows, maybe I'll write her story. If you'd like to learn more tidbits about these characters, I'd be happy to do another video in the future on the inspiration and some of the story behind the inspirations, all that kind of things. And I'm sorry if I'm just kind of rambling now. It's pretty late at night and it's been a pretty long day as well. So I hope you have a brilliant rest of your evening, and until next time.